Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Thank you, Pastor Clem, for hosting us here in the Bridge. And what a wonderful, symbolic place to be in a community that builds bridges between communities that have been, in the past, segregated and separated by laws that I have read that in this day and age are horrifying, but were very real within my lifetime. But they don't think about the National Park Service as America's storyteller, but that is our job, and the mayor alluded to us. It is our job within the National Park Service to make sure that our journey, all facets of our journey, are told. And under President Obama's leadership and John Jarvis' leadership as director of the Park Service, we've begun to fill in some important gaps in our history. You know, I'm a newcomer to Washington, D.C., and I'll be waving goodbye as I drive back slowly, making a way through the South and on my way back to my home in Seattle, Washington, when this job is over. I'll be watching at the gaps that we have begun to fill in this storytelling. In Washington, D.C., we're filled with monuments, almost all to white men, many from Civil War era, all kind of told through a very narrow lens. And that's true for many of the stories that John and his people have interpreted on behalf of the National Park Service for years. But thanks to John's leadership, President Obama's support, and the support of men and women in the U.S. Congress that have asked us to do this as well, we've begun to tell a different story, the story of Cesar Chavez through a national monument in California and the farm workers' movements, the story of selective internment in Hawaii of Japanese Americans through Honouliuli National Monument, the Belmont Paul Women's Equality National Monument, and the story of women's suffrage, but also the Mary McLeod Bethune House, because African American women were not able to participate in that struggle for suffrage in a visible way because of the segregation that was present in this country. Harriet Tubman National Monument, now a national park unit thanks to additional action by Congress. Charles Young Buffalo Soldiers, who were the first National Park Rangers, an all-black cavalry unit that protected Yellowstone and Yosemite and other iconic places, and that is told in that story is told in Ohio. And of course, Fort Monroe, an instrumental place in slavery, a place with tremendous sadness, but a place that we now recognize is an important story that must be interpreted as part of our history. And for those of you that haven't gone, and the lines are long, and you might want to wait a while, but the new Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture is an amazing place to tell that important story that also played out right here on the streets and the highways around Anniston.